In the world of AI, all that information has to go somewhere, and data centers are the answer right now. But it's not that easy. We're seeing a lot of pushback from local citizens, local governments, and the state. So we're going to find out more about that activity with data centers and where we need to be looking next for this development on this business backdrop. Welcome to the Business Backdrop, sponsored by Edition Financial. My name is Richard Bobow, Editor-in-Chief of the Orlando Business Journal, and we're going to be talking about data centers today. Big facilities, big money, big spending, with all that information from AI that's coming together. However, it hasn't been easy. There's been a lot of pushback from governments, citizens, all the way up to the state level. We're going to find out more with our reporter, Riley Benson. But before that, we're going to dive into our headlines of the week. An entity tied to Winter Garden real estate investor Jim Larwith has closed on the purchase of another Winter Garden property. On August 14th, Larwith's entity acquired the shuttered Moon Cricket Grill property at 14 West Plant Street for $2.35 million. In an email statement to OBJ, Larwith said the entity will begin a careful historic restoration and be thoughtful on what fills the space next. He said the businesses that occupy will be locally rooted, family-friendly, and consistent with the character of downtown Winter Garden. Now we're going to head over to the coast. Brevard Zoo's aquarium project has hit a snag over its lease. Plans for the East Coast Zoological Foundation's $140 million new aquarium project at Port Canaveral has shared a key concern recently. At a Canaveral Port Authority meeting on August 19th, key foundation officials shared how the project is ready to pull building permits, but it still needs to iron out the lease agreement for the 14-acre site owned by Canaveral, where the project is slated to land. While no definitive resolution was found, the port did say that it will continue to collaborate and coordinate with the aquarium team, including conversations on the lease agreement. And last but not least, if you're looking for another place to travel, know that Allegiant has added new flights out of Orlando and Sanford's airports. Allegiant, the ultra-low-cost carrier, announced new flights coming out of both Orlando International Airport and Orlando Sanford International Airport. The airline has 3 new routes out of Orlando Sanford to Grand Forks County in North Dakota, Boston, and Providence, Rhode Island. Meanwhile, the new Orlando International connection connects the City Beautiful with Cincinnati. And those are some of the top headlines of the week. If you want to know more about those, make sure you check OrlandoBusinessJournal.com. And we're going to roll right into our top story right after this break.
When it comes to meeting your short and long-term saving goals, you need a financial partner focused on helping you, not their bottom line. At Edition Financial, we see the real you. For more than 85 years, we've helped Central Floridians get the most for their hard-earned savings. Compare our saving rates to the big banks, and we think you'll like what you see. And with convenient money management tools and personalized guidance, we make saving easy. Edition Financial, exceptional banking for everyone since 1937.
And now we're back from our break, and we're going to talk a little bit about data centers and how that's playing in Central Florida. Data centers are huge projects, but there's a lot of concern whether it comes to the environment or where do these things get built. So to help us talk a little bit more about it, we've brought Riley Benson, commercial real estate reporter, to talk a little bit more about data centers. Riley, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So Riley, let's start from the very beginning here. Can you help, in case no one's ever heard before what data centers are, what they are exactly, and what kind of an impact are they having on Central Florida?
Data centers are essentially just facilities used to store and process electronic data. They've operated in Florida for decades. From my reporting, I believe Florida has 12 operating data centers, some dating back to opening in 2008. These currently standing facilities range from 1 megawatt of electricity to 12 megawatts of electricity in capacity. Overall, small data centers typically consume between 1 to 5 megawatts of electricity to serve local traffic or specific business needs. Currently in Central Florida, there's only one data center that is in development, and I believe it's to open soon. It's a 100,000 square foot facility in Eatonville.
So there's been a lot of news around data centers and the sentiment that there is in Central Florida. What is some of that you've heard?
In Central Florida and nationally, data centers have received a lot of pushback, specifically on the new kind of large-scale developments called hyperscale data centers. In Central Florida, we've seen various counties discuss plans for implementing moratoriums, which are kind of just temporary bans to kind of reevaluate if the county can handle it. These counties include Lake, Seminole, and Volusia County. Meanwhile, in Brevard County, while they haven't implemented any type of moratoriums, the county has removed data centers from the type of development that would be eligible for tax exemptions, as well as the city of Titusville is pursuing an outright ban of data centers within the city.
When we talk about these data centers and the economics that they can bring, whenever we have any type of development, we talk about jobs created or what the economic return. What's been the economic return that you've heard with data centers, as well as some of the kind of the pushback on it?
When talking to experts about the economic effects, they are measurable, but more modest than those associated with traditional manufacturing projects. Research shows that at a county level, there's approximately 1% growth in employment, wages, and business establishments within the first 3 years after a county's first data center opens. Over time, those effects accumulate and reach about 3.5 to 5% growth over the long term. Obviously, it does vary from location to location. Metro counties generally see stronger employment gains because they have already established labor pools and business networks, while non-metro counties often experience more limited employment and wage spillovers. For Central Florida, you can think of metro areas as being Orlando proper, while more rural areas like Volusia, Lake, or Osceola being the non-metro areas.
Interesting. Environmental concerns. That's what I hear a lot when I hear data centers or read stories about it. Those are kind of the loudest voices out there. What is the impact that we're seeing from these facilities? What are some of the concerns you've heard, and what are some of the solutions you're seeing proposed to kind of combat these concerns?
So water and electricity usage remain kind of the two biggest environmental concerns surrounding data center development. Some facilities can use up to 5 million gallons of water per day for cooling, which is equivalent to the water use of a town between the size of 10 to 50,000 people. For Florida, this is especially important because groundwater is the primary source of water, and some areas of the state are already withdrawing waters at levels that might not be sustainable during drought conditions, which, if you've been watching the news, I feel like we've been seeing drought alerts like all the time and happen more and more often. Some developers are looking for alternatives that reduce water consumption, such as the Eatonville Data Center, which was designed with an air-cooled system intended to avoid the continuous water demands associated with traditional cooling methods. Although some experts say that this system really isn't a perfect solution, as the indirect use of the increased energy that's required to utilize that kind of system can sometimes exceed the amount of energy used in a traditional direct-use water system.
Wow. When you talk about the environmental concerns and those concerns have gotten up to our leaders in Tallahassee here in Florida, we saw a Senate bill, start creating some change with Senate Bill 484. What is that bill, and how do you see it kind of changing the way the state approaches data centers?
So the Senate bill is kind of an attempt to address some of these concerns about data centers, as it includes provisions requiring facilities to cover kind of their own electrical service costs rather than shifting those expenses to other consumers. And while the bill doesn't exactly encourage more data centers, it also doesn't really deter it completely. Legal experts have told me that, the reality we have to face is that we are utilizing more electricity, whether that's through increased AI usage, like people say, then we're using more than we can currently support. And so this bill is kind of the first step in attempting to find some sort of balance between the concerns of data centers, but also we kind of need more data centers.
Well, Riley, thank you for your insight. Last question. As we continue to follow data centers, you continue to research them. What are you closely watching with regard to that activity here in Central Florida?
For me, I will closely be watching the counties that haven't kind of discussed moratoriums or bans, which includes Orange and Osceola County. To me, Osceola County is particularly interesting because it's so massive and there's so much rural space that there's kind of no development in, which even if it's set aside for conservation, I feel like developers might be itching to try to get something out over there. And it's especially interesting considering that Osceola's neighboring county, Polk, a few months ago approved the largest planned data center for the state, which would be across 1,300 acres and be 4.4 million square feet in size.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. Well, thank you, Riley, for chatting with us about data centers, and we'll be back right after this break.
When it comes to meeting your short and long-term saving goals, you need a financial partner focused on helping you, not their bottom line. At Addition Financial, we see the real you. For more than 85 years, we've helped Central Floridians get the most for their hard-earned savings. Compare our saving rates to the big banks, and we think you'll like what you see. And with convenient money management tools and personalized guidance, we make saving easy. Addition Financial, exceptional banking for everyone since 1937.
Big thank you to Riley Benson for coming on and talking about data centers, and we'll keep a close eye on that and sharing any more insight that we have on that great story. Well, that's going to wrap up another episode of the Business Backdrop. So thanks to our sponsor, Addition Financial, and thanks to you for coming on. So please like, subscribe, rate our show, and tell your friends about the Business Backdrop. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And as always, I'll see you next time.